Mm-hmm. It's okay. All right, so we're going to go back. We're going to start from in his letter to the Corinthians church, to the Corinthians. The Apostle Paul warns us about false teaching, spiritual stronghold, and the importance of bringing our thoughts under Christ's authority. He makes it clear that our real battle isn't against people, but against deceptive ideas and a mindset that pulls us away from God's truth. This battle for our minds isn't always obvious. We're constantly bombarded with negative voices, internal doubts, and worry about the future. Over time, the mental clutter builds up, just like the toxin in our body. Paul reminds us that the spiritual battles are real and our thoughts play a critical role in them. If we don't take control of our thoughts, it will control us. And as I was explaining before we had the disruption, is that oftentimes a situation happened in our lives, and instead of stopping and saying, okay, this may not be as bad, we often think about the negative, like I shared with you all before. Someone's late, they keep calling, then you keep calling them, and instead of thinking, well, probably that person's phone messed up, died, or situation, we often automatically think that person's in an accident. Even, as a mother growing up with raising my children, oftentimes when they got their phones, as we were talking the other day, Tania, you have had a phone now for over 20 years, if I'm not mistaken, for over 20 years. And in that time, they go out. Well, they didn't have the unlimited call, so they were not able to use all of their minutes anyway. But with them raising up and being teenagers, you call them, they don't answer. Automatically, your mind is like, okay, what happened? And you get to find out that they were not being responsible. They may not have their phone on them or whatever like that. So that tends to lend to the fact of you over worrying. But what did the Bible tell us? We're supposed to take all thoughts into captivity. Amen. Mm-hmm. We're supposed to capture every thought to obedience. But let's be honest. How often do we do that? Honestly. If you can think about the last situation that happened, and instead of you thinking, okay, well, it's not as bad as it was. I remember a couple of days ago, my supervisor called me, and she kept calling me and kept calling me and calling me. And my business phone, for some reason, my regular phone rings, but they cannot call. They're not supposed to call me on my regular phone. They have to call me on my business phone. So when I saw all these missed calls from her, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on, because for her to call me after 5 and I see all these missed calls. So I called her back. She didn't answer. I was like, man, I'm about to get fired, y'all. And y'all know I love this new job because, hey, I love this new job because I have autonomy over my schedule. And I'm like, man, I can even do my job on a cruise like I was able to do. I kept calling, and then eventually she called me back. And she was like, hey. And I was like, hey, I missed a call. She said, no, I didn't call you. I was like, yes. She said, oh no, I called you because I saw a missed call from you. I promise you, for that, however length of time was, I really thought something was wrong. What, you understand? I really thought I got fired. And I was like, man, I love this new job. But how often do we start going to the negative? Mm-hmm. But the Bible tells us what? Take our thoughts into captivity. When the Apostle Paul, as we talked about before, we had to cut the video. The Apostle Paul, when he was talking to the Corinthian church, they faced similar struggles. They were surrounded by false ideas and cultural pressure. Does that sound like us? Amen. Amen? Yep. They wrestled with influence that tested their faith and shaped their worldview. Today, we encounter the same challenges. We have misleading messages, self-doubt, and conflict and belief that distort the truth of God. I mean, I see so much that's going on now. I don't even watch the news. I do not watch the news. Recently, I did get one during my meeting with my supervisor. I did get one complaint from one of my clients. I had this client that I was working with, and she said this to me. She was like, I hate President Trump. All of us, we getting ready to go back to Africa. What? We're all about to get deported. All black people, we're about to get deported to Africa. And she was going on and on about everything that's going on. So I said to her, I said, where did you get that from? Did you watch the news? No, but I saw it on TikTok. So I said, okay, so President Trump is about to send all black people back to Africa, okay? And all these other things. And Project 2025 is going to make us this. It's going to make us slave again. Where did you get this information? From TikTok. So I said to her, with myself, no, I'm saying, did you research yourself? Did you research? I said, I gave her homework because as a therapist, my job is to help you. I can't give you the solution, right? But what I'm supposed to do is help give you your options. So I told her, I said, go research, Project 2025 and then come back and tell me what it is. I don't know what that child went in and told her family, but they call and say, I am trying to push politics on the child. That was my complaint, right? But do you know, before I was talking to this child, how she was stressing about going back to Africa? She was stressing about Project 2025 making all black people slaves again. She was thinking the negative. And all this thing is going up. And I mean, you could tell that she was not just being over dramatic. You could tell the stress that was on her face that was weighing her down. All these different things. And I don't have TikTok. Oh, well, I have TikTok, but I don't understand TikTok. So I just stay in my lane and not mess with it. But even talking to an adult who lives on TikTok, right? The things that she tells me that she see on TikTok, it can make one very, very depressed. You guys ever heard of agoraphobia? It became more popular and more pronounced during COVID. And the reason why it became more pronounced during COVID is because people are dying, they see people getting sick, and it started becoming so afraid that they're afraid to leave their home. And they started dealing with a lot of mental issues. Amen? Mental issues that they didn't have before, but because they're so bombarded with everything that the news is telling them, that they got bogged down with that. But can you imagine how that affects our spiritual life when we take in so many different things, so many information, and the most information that we get is for ourselves? Do you guys realize that? That's why, as I think I mentioned in the book before, the Joyce Meyer's Battlefield of the Mind, when it talks about how we have to be mindful of our mind, because oftentimes there's so much information that goes through our mind on a daily basis. Even like me, even right here, I'm up here talking to you all, and I'm pretty sure I'm talking about, I'm so hungry, I can't wait to finish so I can go home and eat. Oftentimes, we're doing one thing, and our minds is going different places. How many people during prayer, you're praying, but you're talking, you're thinking about something else? Honest. Yep. Yes. Why? Because our mind takes in so much information oftentimes, but a lot of the information that we take in is not always healthy. It's not always healthy. So much things going through our mind. We have this person telling you this. We have that person telling you this. You're seeing this on TikTok. You're seeing this on Instagram. You're seeing this on Snap. You see that information on Snapchat? Yes, I'm just going to say Snapchat. Yes, and Facebook, right? So you're taking all that information in, I thought, wow, it's just like natural food. If you keep eating, and not eliminating, what eventually happens? You get constipated, right? No, she's actually right. You get constipated, and all that information is clogged up in you. And eventually, it becomes dangerous. People do not understand. If you do not eliminate daily, I know some people we know can go 2 and 3 days without eliminating, right? But do you know, after a while, that stuff gets hard. It gets real, real hard. And you will have to go into emergency surgery. But what happens if you do not get it out in enough time? What happens? It becomes toxic. It becomes toxic in your body, right? Mm-hmm. But that's the same way with our spirit and our mind. Do you all understand? The mind is with the emotion, right? So we have all that thing. It's the spirit, the mind, all of it. So if the natural body can get toxins because of things being stored up in it, what happened to our spirit? That's why some of us are so mean and ugly. And I'm not talking about the physical ugliness. I'm talking about we're so mean hateful and bitter, because guess what? We have so much going on in our mind, in our spirit, right? Del, we want to deal with people based on our emotion. I have things now that I tell people, when I'm working with clients, I tell parents that oftentimes when you hear a person speak, they're speaking based on their trauma. They're not always speaking based on what you did to them. You know what I mean? You can go up and say good morning to some people and they go snap off on you. And you're like, all I said was hi. That person is not you, but it's everything that have built up in them. I try to tell the children, I said, okay, the reason why you have to get rid of some of this thing is because when I have to throw her under the bus, when Tanelia was younger, right? When we got her to clean, her and Alicia, there were only girls in the house, so they had to clean. So Tanelia had a secret to cleaning. She would pick the rug up, she'll pick the rug up and sweep the dust, not big dust, but she'll sweep the dust under the carpet, right? Keep sweeping it. So what happened when she keeps sweeping? It keeps building up. And then what happens? Then eventually it becomes one amount, right? Not saying that she did that. I'm not saying that you did, but you remember that's what you used to. She used to do that. She keeps sweeping, sweeping, sweeping. That's what we happen toward it. What happened in our spirit? We keep putting things out, putting things under, and then eventually it becomes a mountain and becomes a stumbling block. That's what's happening to us right now because we're putting so much toxic in our spirit. The news is telling you about what's happening. The biggest issue that I see right now that people are having issue like, oh my gosh, we're gonna lose Timu. Oh my gosh, what's gonna happen to Sheen? The same thing that's happening to all the other places. But you guys are being concerned about things that is not healthy for you. Not saying that how much you shouldn't worry about things. I mean, you shouldn't think about things, right? But the Bible tells us what? I believe it was Pastor Roger, somebody talked about cast all your cares upon the Lord because he cares for you. But are we doing that? We are in the second month of a brand new year, right? And I see so many people are stressing over things that don't make no sense. Well, okay, let me back up. It may not make sense to me, but it makes sense to them. Amen? It makes sense to them. But if you don't take control of these things, it's going to take control of you. Anything that you don't deal with will deal with you. And you guys will understand where I'm going with this. I remember in the book of, I believe it's in Samuel, where the prophet was telling King Saul to go kill the Amalekites, right? But he didn't do what he told him, what God commanded him to do. Amen. He didn't handle what God told him to do. So for the fact he didn't handle it, what ended up happening? It ended up handling him. It ended up, well, the Bible when it was talking about when the Amalekites saw King Saul, King Saul, and how, he came back and told David, hey, I killed him, right? He gave room for the enemy to come back and get him. Do you know a lot of us are doing the same thing too? Emotionally. We're not dealing with things. We're not allowing things. If God tells us, don't stress. Don't deal with it. What's happening with it? For the fact that we're dealing with things the way we want to, it's going to come back and deal with us. We have to get to the place right now where we have to learn to detox. Somebody tell me what detox means to them.
It means clean out.
Yeah.
For me, others,
Mhm.
it means if you're doing something
Mhm.
and you need time to take off of it, like me and you had our discussion,
Right.
and drinking water, fruit.
Good.
To clean your system for something.
I need you to lie. I need you to be just as loud when you guys are making TikTok videos.
Right.
To clean your system from something.
Okay, so I can.
About 3-4 weeks ago, I went down. I was stressed out,
Mm-hmm.
and my husband sent me down to my daughter in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And what my daughter did was she gave me healthy food.
Good.
She had me drink a lot of water, and she made a lot of juice, natural juice from fruits and vegetables, herbs, and she put it in the juice, and she gave me bottles and bottles of it. So the first week I was eating healthy,
Mm-hmm.
and the second week she said, "You're not eating any food. You're going to drink the juice every day. It's your meal with the juice and the herb." And so when I came back, everybody was saying, oh, you look so different. Your face looks so clean. And you look, your whole aura is different. And I had to tell him it was my daughter who did that to me.
Because guess what she did? She reset your system. Now, if in the natural we reset our system, how Zolaka went and her daughter gave her the nutrients and the things she needed to reset her system. What are we doing to reset our spirit? What are we doing to reset our mind? Because once again, if we are not controlling our minds will control us. And we have to get to the place in God. How can you expect to hold on to the promises of God if you're so busy focusing on everything else? It's kind of, I don't know about anybody else. It's kind of hard for me to focus when I have so much going on in our mind. And like I mentioned before, that's why a lot of us are so angry. We're so bitter because we have so much toxin built up in our spirit man. But like as I said, in order for our spirit man, amen, to get to a healthy place, we have to start dealing first with our mind, because our mind affects everything else. Our mind affects the way we speak. Our mind affects the way we act. Our mind affects the way we embrace people. You know, I see people like this, right? Look, I'm going to use somebody from y'all know husting and Roger like too. That means I'm very guarded. I don't want anybody in my personal space, right? But how can you receive love if you're always closed up? How can you receive anything if you have that guard up against you? Why do we have that guard up against it? Goes back to the way we perceive things. The same way how the Apostle Paul tells us, okay, you have to capture every thought. Every time, and as I say, this is going, I don't know, I didn't tell you all before, but this has to be a series. And the reason why it has to be a series, because we cannot go into one more month in the state that we're in. A lot of us in a jacked up place, I'll be honest with you. Because I know some of you all, a lot of us are jacked up emotionally, we're jacked up mentally, we're jacked up physically. Why? Not because of what people are doing to us, but because of what we're doing to ourselves. Yeah. We have to get to the place where we have to stop and say, you know what? When a negative thought comes to our mind, we have to say, okay, what does the Bible say about that? What does the Bible say about us? A lot of us have a lot of low self-esteem. I mean, you know, with me having teenagers around, I always have some kind of drama, some kind of mental breakdown going on. Always some mental breakdown. And the reason why we have some mental breakdown, because somebody said on TikTok, I don't like your braids. Instagram. Oh, excuse me, Instagram? Okay, my bad. Okay, I'm sorry. Somebody said on Instagram, I don't like your braids. Or you doing that TikTok dance wrong. Now there's a whole mental breakdown. But what did God say about you? You are my beloved. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. But how oftentimes it's easy, you realize it's easier to believe a lie than the truth, especially when it comes to ourselves. I don't care. Like I would tell Tania, I like that hat on you. The first thing she'll talk about, oh, you know what, it's not the right color. Or my leg is thin. I tell Alicia, girl, you know you work like hair. Yeah, but you know what? I don't like the way my edges is done. Like Ari has the prettiest hair ever. Her hair reminds me of my mom hair. She had that baby, beautiful hair. And she, you know, Charles stay on them about using that horse hair in their hair, right? He stay on them because he wants them to look natural and pretty. And he was like, Ari, why don't you wear your own hair? Because my forehead too big and I want to do my edges or whatever like that. You know, that's what they say. But when we look at her, if you look at her in the natural, you're like, oh my gosh, you're so pretty. You don't need all those people here in your hair. It's always my head, whatever. But that's the way they see themselves, right? But what does God say to her? He said, Ari, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Right? But do we always feel like that? Or we always, it's quicker for Ari to say, but think somebody, Jojo come and say, girl, you got a fire head instead of a forehead. She'll believe that. But if I come and say, Ari, you here? Oh my gosh, I love you here. So this first thing she does, my forehead too big. But I'm joking. But it's easier for us as humans to believe the negative instead of the positive. When God said that you can do all things through Him, it's easier for the enemy, for some of us to believe that you can't do it. It can't be done. We have to get to the place where we stop holding on to what God said we are. Because if we do, we're going to see our life better. We're going to learn to accept love the way that God intended for us. We're going to believe that we can do the things that we can do. Even like last week, and let's give God a hand clap of praise for Tanelia, guys. No, seriously, she did something that was amazing. Seriously, she, her car was down, and I was speaking negative. I promise you, she was like, "Mommy, I'm going to do my own tune-up." I said, "Girl, you're not a mechanic. You don't know what you're doing." I said, "Go ahead and take it to what you call it." I mean, I was doubting her. I was doubting her. And that's why I say, honestly, we have to really just be mindful of the things we allow, negative thoughts that we allow to come to our mind. And she told me she was going to do it, and I talked her out of it. And the enemy is so crafty, and that's what he does in our life, right? He will put stumbling blocks in our life. So if we say, she said, "I can do it." I said, "No, you can't." She said, "Mommy, I'm going to try because I already spent my money." Right? So she went and did it. And I'm going to close with this. She went and did it, but it didn't work. So in her mind and in me, I said, I told you to tow the car, bring it to the house and do whatever. And I kept badgering her. She was like, "Well, I already spent the money. I don't have the money." So I was like, okay, what we need to do. So for 2 days, the enemy lied to her and told her, "See, what you did was wrong. You messed it up." And me, I'm like, "Girl, you need to go get a new car." I was digging on her until she stopped and thought about who she served. She went ahead, called people and said, "Hey, this is what I'm doing." Do you know she fixed the car right? But guess what she did? She put in one spark plug wrong, whatever she did with it, right? And now she's driving around in a car that she was able to do her own tune-up with. How many of us will stop and think that because the things that God tells us to do, we can do it, but because there's a stumbling block, we automatically say, "Okay, I can't do it." A lot of us would have given up. Honestly, did you ever feel like, be honest, did you feel like giving up at that time?
I did give up at one point. I wouldn't
Right. I would have never done it either. But what happened? A lot of us give up too soon.
too soon.
God tells us we can do all
Yeah.
things through Him. But because a stumbling block, things may not go the way we expect it to go, and we give up. A lot of us are on the brink of our breakthrough. We're on the brink of a miracle. We're on the brink of getting what God wants us to do. But because our mind tell us, "See, Billy Joe did it, and it didn't work. And you're going to try to do," see, that's what happened to Billy Joe. Because with me, with her car, I told you. I told you. But how many times we are believing the lies instead of the truth of God? We have to get to the place that we have to stop taking in so much information. I know I didn't give you all of your points, but guess what? We're going to keep doing this because I want March to look different from February. We have to get to the place where we're healthy enough, where we can start being who God called us to be. We have to be healthy enough to tell her that no matter what, that you can do what the enemy's saying you can't do. We have to get to the place that no matter what it looks like, no what it feels like, we have to be able to do it. And I don't know why this is not part of my message, but as I was ministering here, I thought about the children of Israel when they're coming out of bondage, when they're coming out of the age of bondage. Amen. They started looking at Pharaoh's army behind them, and they saw the Red Sea in front of them.
Amen.
And they started saying, "Moses, we told you to leave us in Egypt. We told you to leave us in captivity. We told you to leave us there, right?
No,
But here you are, you brought us into this place now. Now the army is either going to kill us or the Red Sea is going to drown us." And Moses turned to God and said, "God, what am I going to do?" And God stopped and said to Moses, "Moses, what is in your hand?" The very thing that Moses needed to get the children of Israel to the place where God had intended for them to go was in their hand. And a lot of us are in that same place like the children of Israel. God is telling us, "Go do this." But you know what, God? It didn't work the first time. Do it again. Do it again. Because the thing that you need is in your hand. Amen? But the thing that's in your hand is not effective until you change what's in your mind. And until you change what's in your mind, you're not going to be able to possess or effectively use what's in your hand. Amen. So we have to get to the place in life where let's start changing here. Because when we start changing what's here, we're going to start changing what come out of here. When we start changing what come out of our mouth, we're going to start changing the way we conduct ourselves. Amen. Let's give God a hand clap of praise. Amen. Let's give God a hand clap of praise that no matter what we do,